Fun Fridays number 10. One of the best movies of the year just dropped on HBO Max, and I bet you that you haven't seen it, and maybe haven't even heard of it at all. Janet Planet is the directorial debut of Annie Baker, who is one of my favorite living playwrights. And I'm here to tell you that the movie is a masterpiece. Janet Planet tells the story of introverted 11-year-old Lacey and her mother Janet as they spend the summer together in Western Massachusetts, and the relationships that they have to the 3 separate guests that come to stay with them during that summer. And that's pretty much it as far as a basic plot synopsis goes. But this film is much more than a basic plot synopsis. Janet Planet is about the relationship between parents and children, between lovers, between friends, between us, and the world around us. But Janet Planet also does something very, very interesting, as it engrosses you in an environment that you may not be too familiar with, and just allows you to live in that world for an hour and 50 minutes. So I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk to you guys about why I find the film so perfect. But first, what's up? My name is Connor McDowell, and I'm currently campaigning to be People Magazine's Sexiest Man Alive for the year 2024. If you like this video, or you think I should be nominated, just click subscribe. One subscribe is all it takes to get me on the cover of People Magazine's Sexiest Man Alive issue, and this is the only thing I want in life besides everything else that I want in life. We just passed 10,000 subscribers 2 days ago, so that means that's 10,000 votes for me to be sexy. Thank you guys so much. It has been a very, very long time, so thank you to everybody who watches my videos. Thank you for watching this one right now. Next up, 100K. Maybe. I don't want to push it. You should also follow me on Letterboxd if you want to see my opinions about every film, not just Janet Planet. And you should also follow my new Twitter that I made, considering I'm still one of the only sane people left on the platform. I'm personally just biding my time until Elon Musk gets arrested. Fingers crossed. Like I said at the beginning of the video, Annie Baker is one of my favorite living playwrights. In 2014, she won the Pulitzer Prize for one of my favorite plays of all time, The Flick. If you're an actor, you've probably heard of it. If you're not, you probably haven't. It tells the story of 3 separate movie theater employees and the conversations that they have in between the screenings at that movie theater. Now, something that Annie Baker is very, very famous for is her use of silence throughout her plays. There are scenes of people just sitting there, not talking, or by themselves doing an activity. For example, this scene from the beginning of her play, The Aliens, focuses on one character just putting mushrooms into their tea so that the tea has a hallucinogenic effect. Until another character comes into the scene, that's all we're doing as an audience. For about a minute and a half, we're sitting there just watching him do this one activity. And you might be thinking, that sounds boring. Why would I want to watch some dude just put shit in his tea? But what this does is it accomplishes a sense of intimacy with the audience and the characters that a lot of plays just don't have. By forcing you to sit in silence and watch somebody do just a regular routine, you suddenly start to understand things about that person that you might not understand if there was dialogue over the action that they were doing. Observing and writing real life is not something that Annie Baker has ever shied away from. In fact, that's what I love most about her plays, is that they feel like real life. Every single one of her characters feels tangible. They feel like somebody that I have known or I have met before in my life. There's a sense of care and affection put into the creation of these characters that a lot of other playwrights just don't bother to spend the time to do, or usually done through expository dialogue. By sitting there and watching KJ manipulate his tea, we as the audience observe important character traits that may have just passed by us in any other film or play. And I personally absolutely love that. Because so much of real life is quiet. We're always constantly listening to the sounds that surround us. It kind of reminds me a bit of John Cage's 433, where the piece of music isn't about the music being played, because there is no music being played, but the ambient sound around us, and how everyday things that we ignore are actually beautiful, which I think is very, very prevalent in her set of plays known as the Vermont Plays. Now, these are 4 separate shows, including The Aliens, which I just talked about, that are all set in Vermont. Other than The Aliens, these plays include Body Awareness, Circle Mirror Transformation, and Nocturama. The reason I bring up the Vermont plays is because of Janet Planet. Janet Planet takes place in Western Massachusetts, which is where Annie Baker grew up and was the basis for her Vermont plays. I guess my whole point here is that for me at least, Janet Planet feels like an extension of the Vermont plays, which I think is just so special. Enough chit chat about Annie Baker. She's great, we all know it. Let's talk about Janet Planet and what about it I love so much. First of all, the cinematography is absolutely beautiful. Cinematographer Maria von Hauswolf does something so very, very interesting in this film that I absolutely love. A lot of the cinematography is very stagnant, like you're looking at a painting, and a lot of shots throughout the film genuinely do look like paintings. If you've seen one of the main posters of the film, it's Janet and Lacey looking into a mirror while Janet is searching Lacey for ticks. This image here is so gorgeous that I understand why they made it the main promotional poster for the film. Every single shot in this film is gorgeous to look at. The colors are vibrant but subdued, something that feels very reminiscent of the late 80s, early 90s. Now, because most of the shots in the film are very stagnant, Maria von Hauswolf then uses the camera panning or moving to signify something that's very, very important to Lacey that she will be remembering. The first time the camera ever moves from being stagnant is in this scene where Lacey is at the mall with her mother's boyfriend's daughter. They meet for the first time and immediately get along, which is something that is not common for Lacey because she is so extremely introverted. I mean, one of the first lines in the film is her literally saying, "I'm gonna kill myself if you don't come pick me up from summer camp," because she was so miserable and alone, she thought she had no friends. So when Lacey finally feels this sudden connection to another person her age, there's a shot where the camera is panning over the different stores in the mall, showing all of the clothing and items that would have been around in the 90s, but as it's panning, we slowly catch up to the two girls running through the mall. Even though Annie Baker has come from playwriting, she understands the language of film. There are many other instances throughout the movie where the camera does move, and all of them feel so important to who Lacey is as a character. Janet Planet was shot on 16mm Kodak film. It gives it this beautiful grainy texture that makes you feel nostalgic for a time period or a place that you maybe were never a part of. At least that's how it affected me, because I wasn't alive in the 90s, and I've never been to Western Massachusetts, but it felt like I had. One of my favorite shots in this film is where one of the characters, Regina, is laying on top of Janet's stomach. And I think what adds to the nostalgia factor is this use of framing, this unconventional use of framing where people are cut off. It makes it feel almost like you're looking at or watching a memory that somebody's having. Take the shot in the very beginning of the film where Lacey is sitting in the back seat looking at her mother and Wayne. And to me, at least, this just seems like a memory, and it's done in a style that you don't see very often. It's this layer of detail in the cinematography that I really think makes Maria von Hauswolf something special. And this really makes me want to check out some of her other films that she's been a cinematographer for. Something that might go overlooked in this film is the costume design, because they're just regular clothing. But the thing that I love about it is that every single article of clothing is very time period specific, but also looks worn out or used. Like, it feels tangible to the world. Lacey has this orange hat that she wears throughout the entire film that I absolutely loved, and I think maybe I loved it because when I went to go see the film, I was also wearing an orange hat, the same exact orange hat that I'm wearing now, and it made me feel just a little bit more connected with the character of Lacey. But the attention to detail in the film doesn't stop at the costumes. It also applies to the incredible set decoration throughout the film. Everything inside of Janet's house feels very specific to either Janet or Lacey. Everything there has a purpose, which sounds like something that would just be obvious, but you would be surprised how many films just don't care enough about that. There's also this clip in an interview with Annie Baker where she talks about the set decoration of the film and how she has these vivid memories of her mother leaving her diaphragm out to dry. And so she included that when making the set decoration, but you never see it. It's there, but you don't see it, which also speaks very poignantly when it comes to the acting in this film. In another interview clip, Annie Baker talks about how when working with the actor that played Avi, instead of doing regular character work, they picked out a moonstone that he could put in his pocket to help him be more in character. Now, this is a thing that I do when I act. It's a thing that a lot of actors do, often called a secret prop, where the actor has something in their pocket or on their person that the audience will never see, that somebody else in the scene will never see, that's just for them to help them in the scene that they're doing. And it may sound crazy, but it works. The audience of the film is never going to see the moonstone that's in his pocket. It's not important to the plot of the story, but it's important to his character, and it's important to how the character is portrayed. And I just love hearing actors and directors talk about stuff like that. It really makes me feel that a lot of care and effort and love was put into this film, and it really shows. After I watched the movie, I very quickly jumped to say that it was a quiet movie. Kind of how Zone of Interest is a quiet movie. Don't worry, there's no more Zone of Interest comparisons. That's literally the only one. The sound design in this film is so fantastic that in every single scene, you feel like you are in the location that they are at. You can hear the whistling of the wind through the trees and all of the different insects and all of the different birds that are native to Western Massachusetts. And this is done because the sound designer put a microphone in a bush for like 2 weeks straight, I think, and just recorded the nature that was surrounding. And the end result is stunning. If you just sit and listen to the soundscape of the movie, it is incredibly immersive. And that's not even to mention the music that's used. All of the music in the film is diegetic, meaning that it comes from the world. So someone turns on a radio and there's music, or they're running through the mall and there's music playing. So in any other film, while you're watching somebody ride their bike, they may have music playing in the film. Not in Janet Planet. You hear the crunching of gravel as they walk. You hear the bike move. But also, the use of music in the movie is fantastic. I will say, little upset that they used one of my favorite Roaches songs in the trailer for the movie and then didn't use it in the movie, but that's fine. That's not a problem. Not even a nitpick. I love Hammond's song and I wish it was in the movie, but regardless, I still love the soundtrack to this film. I really believe that this diegetic approach to the music just adds, again, another layer on top of the immersion. Throughout the film, Lacey is seen collecting things that adults might think of as garbage. For example, old candy wrappers, specifically Lindor truffle wrappers, pieces of paper that other people leave behind, grass clippings that she picks up from her mom's boyfriend while she's mowing the lawn. All of these things that would be deemed trash or useless by adults, Lacey finds something important about those objects. Something that they can be used for. She uses the Lindor truffle wrappers as hats for her figurines. She uses the grass as food for them. For me, watching 11-year-old Lacey do this in the film really brought me back to my own childhood because I collected dumb, stupid stuff that nobody cared about like that. I mean, I still kind of do. I have a whole box full of things that I've collected at thrift stores, birthday cards and personal notes written to people that were just accidentally donated or thrown out, and I have a little box of them just because I didn't want those things to disappear forever from the world, and that really made me feel connected to Lacey in that moment. But as the adults watching the movie, you may not understand why Lacey is collecting all of these things, and neither do the adults in the film. The adults don't understand Lacey, and Lacey doesn't understand them. Lacey is constantly asking questions to the adults around her, whether it be to Wayne why he doesn't see his daughter anymore, or when she's talking to her mother about how she thinks she may be a lesbian. They are constantly asking questions back and forth between each other, trying desperately to understand why they do the things that they do. But I think what's really interesting is the questions don't often get answered. We never know why Wayne doesn't see his daughter. Regina asks Lacey why she smears her hair on the bathroom wall, and we never get an answer to that either. But growing up, we often don't get a lot of answers. We ask adults questions that they may not know the answer to, or that we may not be old enough to have explained to us. And then similarly, adults have a hard time understanding the mind of children, even though they were children once themselves. Towards the end of the film, Janet expresses to somebody that even when Lacey isn't around, it still feels like she's watching her. And that scene in the movie is the only scene where we don't see Lacey, which helps flesh out both Lacey and Janet as characters. Now, the last thing I want to touch on before I close the video out is something that a lot of people might not have caught on to while watching the film, and that is there is a massive anti-war theme throughout the film. Wayne, Janet's boyfriend, when pressed about his son and where his son lives, he says Iraq and California. Nothing else is explained. But if you understand the time period that the movie takes place in, you know that his son was probably a part of Desert Storm and is still currently deployed in Iraq, which adds something extremely important to Wayne's character without the playwright having to just explain it all to the audience. At one point in the film, Janet and Lacey go to an artist commune where they watch a live theater performance, heavily inspired by Hinduism and spirituality, that have these massive puppets that are very, very reminiscent of anti-war puppets used during the Vietnam War. I will admit that I do have a massive blind side when it comes to theater like this, but I couldn't help but feel a connection between the two types of mediums. And that's also not to mention that the leader of the commune has a Free Tibet bumper sticker on his car. But I think the part of the movie that really spoke to me is when Lacey and Regina are sitting in Regina's car having a conversation, and Lacey brings up that a guy had lit himself on fire nearby where they were parked, specifically because he was against the war. And this really hit home to me because the film came out just a few months after Aaron Bushnell, the 25-year-old member of the Air Force, took his own life by self-immolation in order to protest the United States States' part in the genocide against the Palestinian people. And I think it's very important to show how the war has affected everybody's life in this movie by not just ignoring it. And Janet Planet does not shy away from expressing these themes, even though it may not be the prevalent theme of the film. So those are just a few reasons as to why I think Janet Planet is an absolute masterpiece of a film. If you don't like slow movies at all, you're probably not going to like this movie. I think this film is very close to Kelly Reichardt's Old Joy, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. I love Kelly Reichardt as a director, and I really hope that we get to see Annie Baker develop her style in film more, because after Janet Planet, I am unbelievably excited to see where she goes from here. All right, well, that's going to be it for me today. If you like this video, don't forget to click like and subscribe if you think I should be nominated to be People Magazine's Sexiest Man Alive for the year 2024. Sorry if this video didn't feel really coherent. I was kind of just going off the cuff. I had a few notes written down, but I really just wanted to express how I felt about the movie from my heart instead of writing out a script. So there may have been a few things that I left out. There was definitely a bunch of stuff I didn't want to talk about without going into spoilers. So if you guys are at all interested, I would be absolutely happy to do a deep dive and write like a whole essay about it. Let me know in the comments if you've watched Janet Planet. If you haven't, did this video make you want to watch it? Does it seem like something you'd be interested in? Because I'm really curious about what everybody else thinks of this film, because it hasn't been getting the reviews that I think it deserves. You can follow me on Letterboxd and Twitter, and you can join my Discord if you want to become a bigger part of this community. The links for all of those are in the description down below. I'm Connor McDowell, and I'm gonna go watch this damn movie again. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.